Hey friends, welcome back to the Tabernacle. My name is Ben and I'm one of the pastors here. Thank you for joining us for another chapter in our Samuel series. Now next weekend, November 20th and 21st, we're going to have our Big Give offering here at the Tabernacle. Now if you've been prayerfully considering how you'd like to contribute, you can do that by going to our website, thetabchurch.com, and right at the top of the homepage you'll see a header for the Big Give. Just click on that, that'll take you right to where you need to be. Now, if you are contributing to the Big Give, whether by mailing in a check or giving online, we just ask that you designate that it is for the Big Give. We just want to make sure we're being good stewards and all of those funds are allocated appropriately. So today we're going to be in 2 Samuel chapter 22. And here we see the story take a change in tone. We've had a lot of drama and a lot of craziness happening in this epic part of David's life. But here we get to see the artist David, that side of him, come out as he sits down to craft one of the Psalms. He's crafting a song of praise to our God. So we hope you get a lot out of this. We've studied it together, so we're going to get right after it. Thanks again for being with us.
Good morning, Tabernacle. Good morning, Tabernacle in Manistee. So glad you guys are joining us. Now, the big give is coming up, and I don't know how excited you are. I always get excited about this. God always surprises at least me in how much this congregation generously gives. So number one, thank you for that. Number two, in the big give, like it goes to other people that do stuff. But did you know we get to buy trampolines? I mean, that's incredibly beautiful. How many of you have ever been the parent of toddlers? Okay, that's called an energy burner, is what it is. It's a sanity keeper. Because for every once that they don't bounce outside, they're bouncing inside, and we prefer them outside. So thank you for that. I just thought that was incredibly beautiful. We're taking a big shift today. We go through the narrative of 2 Samuel about King David, and it's a stunning story, and I love stories. I love listening to stories. It gets us a more intimate detail into people, which I happen to like people. Do you know I like you? I like you. But I love the stories, but suddenly we switch, and it's such a fast gear switch. Suddenly we're going to a song. We go from narrative to song. That was shifting from third to first without a clutch. It's kind of how it feels to me. And I'm wondering why it's there like this. And my belief, at least for me personally, maybe you can agree with this, I need to slow down. I need to pause. I need to look specifically, because what I'm reading is the story of David's relationship with God. And I need to transition to my relationship with God. And I think that's what this does. Now, I'm pretty distracted today, and that's okay. I'm easily distracted, but I'm sharing this with you not out of sympathy or anything like that, but my mom had a stroke. My mom is 94, and so she just had a stroke. She's in a wonderful nursing home in Grand Rapids where the people really, really love her. And I have family down there, and they're all with her. And you can only have 4 in the room at the time, so I'm not there yet. But I'm going to go this afternoon. But I know my mom, right? She's 94. She survived a bout with COVID. How about that? She's a resilient woman, and she's really short, right? She's a really small, tiny little woman. And she's a little bit bent over today. And all of my aunts were the same height, and they all called me Little Timmy, which was great because they come up to here. Which is cool. But the thing that I know about my mom is her faith in Christ, right? That's been evident. My mom has got just a stunning Bible with a million things written in it. Her prayer life is vibrant, always has been. She's prayed for you guys for 17 years. I don't know if you know that. Some of you by name. So it's a cool thing. But I know my mom well enough to know that she has a little bit of fear right now. Because the end is coming. And we know it. She might be here for a day. She might be here for months. I don't know. But I know my mom well enough to know that even though there's excitement and she has faith and she knows where she's going, she's honest enough to say, here at death's door, there's a little bit of fear. So that's okay. But one of the things that I love is there's this worship happening right now with my mom. And the worship is this. There are people there who love her, and she loves them. And my mom is a very physical person, and she's been holding somebody's hand for the last 2 days. Isn't that cool? People have been there holding hand, sharing the fear with her, helping her take that away. And that, my friends, is worship. Because we know where she's going. We're at peace. We've said everything that needs to be said. So that's such a beautiful thing. And it also caused me to pause my life for a minute. And that's what David's doing for us today. He's pausing our lives. And he does it with a song. I love music. And we all love music. And music is actually a very vibrant part of our life, whether you agree, do it intentionally or unintentionally. If you go out right now and you go to a big store, like the big stores, bigger than we have in Buckley, let's say, you're going to hear most likely Christmas music, right? There should be a boo or a ha-ha. See, it's not even Thanksgiving yet. There's a joke in there. But music is prevalent all the time, and it just goes and it goes and it goes. And there's a reason for that. Number one, we're built in God's image, and we react, we respond to music. And we have our favorite songs out there. You know, one of the ways I know that is I've had the privilege of doing a lot of funerals. And so the family comes in when somebody dies, and you know, we get to know them. That's how you do a funeral. You get to know the family a little bit, just a little bit. And then we start to plan a service, and this is what most families do, is they bring songs that their loved one had loved, and they want us to play them. The unfortunate thing is they bring 10 songs. And they would like to play all of them, and that makes for a really awkward, long funeral, right? It just does. And there's we have to kind of talk them off the ledge and go, those are great, those are good. Let's play some before, you know, when people hear some after, and let's maybe do 2 songs in the service. And they'll agree. You could tell there's a little sadness, but they want you to know intimately something about that person. And songs speak that something, don't they? So maybe songs for you. Maybe you went to school. Maybe some of you went to college. And you had this thing called a fight song, right? And you heard the song and it would stir emotions. And that's a beautiful thing. I know for myself, for the longest time, and I still am this way, you just can't look at me when this happens, but if I'm at a sporting event and they like play our national anthem and people are singing, my eyes do really weird stuff when that happens. And I can't help it. I get choked. You know, I'm a patriot. I love America. I'm an American. I don't know if you know that, but I live in America. I'm so grateful that I live in Michigan. That's my state. And Buckley is my home, and I love it, and I'm proud of it. And I'm an American. When we play our anthem, it stirs me. That's a cool thing. But there's a different type of music out there. Now, I don't know what your genre is. I have a playlist, and my playlist is like, I think it's up to 280 songs. And at my funeral, we're playing all of them, just so you know. It's going to be cool. But there are certain songs that are different. And David stops and pauses at this point in his life, and he writes this song, and it is a song from the soul. This is he's describing in the best way he can, as a poet, as an author, as a writer, as a musician, he writes a song. Now, poetry and me don't get along. That doesn't work for me, and I'm okay with that. Please don't try to come up and teach me poetry. That won't work. That'll be like teaching a dog theology, and it won't be fun for anyone. So, songs, though, are different for me. See, some people really love worship music, and there's some worship songs I like. I will admit that. In fact, you know, we're going to hear some more in a bit, but there's also this worship that comes in the artistry of words. And there's a reason that they speak to me, because the songs that I love, okay, one of my favorite musicians is Bob Dylan, and Bob Dylan can't carry a tune. I don't know if you know that, but the guy has a horrid voice. He really does. But the way he writes is so exactly how I feel sometimes. I don't agree with all of his music, that's not it. But I have this appreciation because when he's speaking through the song, he's telling me about real life that really happened. And there was a time in Bob Dylan's life where he turned it all around and he really found Jesus Christ. And his worship songs are some of the most ridiculously powerful songs I've ever heard. We'll never sing them because nobody can sing that bad, okay? But the music is incredible. And it speaks to my soul. So when I do premarital counseling, and sometimes in regular counseling too, I will do this thing that is, I think I'm the only one that I know that does this. Maybe there's some other people out there too. There's a lot of great counselors out there. I'm not one of them. But I do this thing where I get to know you first. I want to know her. I want to know him. I want to know what's going on in their lives. I want to know where you came from, because that's what makes my boat float, is finding out about people's lives and where they've been and where they came from. I love those stories, and I don't have enough time to get all of them. But when they come and see me, I get time. And I get to a point, and suddenly this is what I make them do, is she goes home and he goes home, and separately they write down, however they want, I don't get to choose that, how they actually feel about the other person. Why do you love this person? Why do you love this one above all others? Because you're making a commitment for life. I'm still a firm believer. That's how marriage should be. I know divorce is prevalent and it happens, and I feel sad, God feels sad, so do people who get divorced. That's not an unforgivable sin at all. But in the beginning, let's state it out loud. Let's say, this is why we do this. And there's this beautiful thing, because you got to write it down. You got to do this assignment. You can't share it. And then they come back in, and we have a brief discussion, and I give them the room for however long they want, and they read them out loud to each other. Does that sound scary or powerful? Yes, that's the exact answer. It is scary because we don't do it. Why don't we do it? Because nobody ever taught us how, except David does. He writes his true feelings about God. And then he says them out loud, and then he puts it to song. So me being somewhat mentally challenged when it comes to school stuff, if there's a new word, see, I continually fool Google autocorrect. I cannot get that. I don't spell. But if there's a word that becomes important to me, I write it down, and then I write it down, and then I write it down. I do it 5 times. I write it down, and then I say it out loud 5 times. And then I'll repeat that throughout the course of the day, and it works about 8% of the time, right? That's just me. But it works. It's the only thing I found that works. But a song comes on, and I know the lyrics. Like, how do I know? My brain is too small for all of that information, but I have it. So I have this couple, and they do that, and they write it down, and I intentionally do this, and they read it to each other. Then I'll come back in the room, and if it's gone well, they're still there, and I threaten the guy, because guys need to be threatened. Can we have a little humor here? Okay, I threaten the guy. It's like, okay, you need to write something like, past your grade level, all right? So you can't just go, well, you smell purty and you have a cute butt. I just said that, and I'm probably in trouble by somebody, but you can't do that. It's got to be real. It's got to be the reals. And I'll come back in, and sometimes, there's red eyes, there's happy. They usually are sitting close together now, really close together. And we don't do that. But I do that for a reason, because we're built-in forgetters. Do you know that couples who get married that are Christians that love Jesus Christ and have faith in his power of redemption, do you know that they argue? Oh my gosh, you guys are the only ones that didn't laugh. Manistee is laughing right now. You know Christian couples argue? Do you know sometimes they fight? Do you know sometimes things come out of their mouth that shouldn't come out? And they would be embarrassed if there was an audience watching them. That's my experience. Maybe I'm the only one, But that's real. And after that, how does the couple feel? Horrible. They both feel horrible. They feel horrible and scared about what was said to them. And they feel horrible and scared about what they said. Now imagine if you could go and you've got this letter, and I make them keep it. That's the goal. So maybe it's 10 years later and you pull out, the greatest place to keep it is your underwear drawer, because nobody else will ever go in there, right? And so you go and you pull it out, and you take a minute and you pause. See, we're at a pause. Because life goes really fast, and now we're at a pause again, like David is pausing us right here. We pause, and we go back through and we read this and go, that's how they really feel. They're not going to abandon me. They love me. Here's some of the special things that they see in me that nobody else ever saw. It's like the greatest love letter you'll ever get. Now, let's transition to David. David has a personal relationship with God. He's anointed by God. David has succeeded and failed and succeeded and failed and succeeded. And he pauses and he writes this down, and he's writing it down so he doesn't forget. Now, we get to be the beneficiaries of this. He's writing it down so he doesn't forget. See, John and I have joked a lot with our wives about the book. And, if we're ever going to write one, it'd just be called The Book. And it's the book about all the weird stuff we've gone through building the tabernacle and all of the weird people we have encountered, including ourselves. I mean, there have been some unique circumstances, but the reason we would want to write that down is not for the funny stories, but so that we don't forget what God did in building this. We didn't do it, he did, and sometimes we forget. So we could go back and we could read it, and unfortunately we didn't write it down. Maybe there's a truth serum or something we could take together sometime and remember it all, I don't know. But we forgot. And in the midst of that, as a pastor, I'm confessing there's times I forget about how evident and presumptive God has been here with us and what's going on. It's incredible. It's a miracle. It's nothing less. A couple of weird guys got together because God said so. And this is his result, not ours. So this is a long letter, and I've already spent way too much time on the intro. So we're going to get into this letter. So David is writing. I'm going to pause a couple of times through here and just make a quick comment. This is 2 Samuel 22, starting at verse 1. And David spoke to the Lord the words of this song on the day when the Lord delivered him from the hands of all of his enemies and from the hand of Saul. He said, "The Lord is my rock and my fortress and my deliverer, my God, my rock, in whom I take refuge, my shield and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold and my refuge, my Savior. You save me from violence. I call upon the Lord who is worthy to be praised, and I am saved from my enemies." David is just stating, this is who I believe God is. This is who I believe God is. And he uses very powerful words. It's a rock and a fortress and a deliverer. Salvation, refuge, stronghold. And he saves David from violence. Verse 5. For the waves of death encompass me. The torrents of destruction assail me. The cords of Sheol entangle me. The snares of death confronted me. In my distress, I called upon the Lord. To my God I called. From his temple he heard my voice, and my cry came to his ears. The earth reeled and rocked. The foundations of the heavens trembled and quaked because he was angry. Smoke went up from his nostrils and devouring fire from his mouth. Glowing coals flamed forth from him. He bowed the heavens and came down. Thick darkness was under his feet. He rode on a cherub and flew. He was seen on the wings of the wind. He made darkness around him his canopy, thick clouds, a gathering water. Out of the brightness before him, coals of fire flamed forth. The Lord thundered from heaven, and the Most High uttered his voice. And he sent out arrows and scattered them, lightning and routed them. Then the channels of the sea were seen. The foundations of the world were laid bare at the rebuke of the Lord, at the blast of the breath of his nostrils. He sent from on high. He took me. He drew me out of many waters. He rescued me from my strong enemy, from those who hated me, for they were too mighty for me. They confronted me in the day of my calamity, but the Lord was my support. He brought me out into a broad place. He rescued me because he delighted in me. God hears, and he powerfully acts. This God delights in you. The whole reason he does it, his love, His grace, His mercy. You. And He acts powerfully in ways. I mean, do you get the symbolism of the power? The foundations of the earth shook. There's fire. As God stands, He bows the heaven with the weight of Him. Darkness is His canopy. He's angry. He's not angry at David. He's angry at the sin of the world that David has to live in. And He uses His might. David already told us this is who I believe God is. And now He's given us what God does. His love is so powerful that it could seem violent. It's that powerful. And He'll do it for you. And He'll do it for us. And He'll do it for me. And He's already done it for the tabernacle. Because He delights in you. David, handsome, tall, talented. The guy can write. He can write poetry. He can write songs. He can play instruments. He can lead battles. He can go in fearlessly. He can seek the Lord's face and the Lord's words in the direst of times and in good times. God delights in him. And it isn't because he has all of those attributes. Those attributes are nothing before Christ. He does it because he delights in him as his child. And David sees the power of his daddy. And it's amazing. It empowers him. God hears you. He hears me. You know, when I get the news of my mom, and, you know, I started thinking about her little tendency towards fear. She had courage. She still does. She has tremendous courage. It doesn't mean the fear isn't there. And I knew people were down there holding her hand. It's like, thank you, God, because that's my one prayer, is that you just take any element of fear away. She's ready. 94 is a lot of years. It really is. Take the fear away. And this God, who is accurately described by David in this song, responded. And I know my mom has the fear, but she has more love than fear. That's the God that will act for us. Verse 21. The Lord dealt with me according to my righteousness. According to the cleanliness of my hands, he rewarded me. For I have kept the ways of the Lord and have not wickedly departed from my God. For all his rules were before me, and from his statutes I did not turn aside. I was blameless before him and kept myself from guilt. And the Lord has rewarded me according to my righteousness, according to my cleanliness in his sight. With the merciful you show yourself merciful. With the blameless you show yourself blameless. With the purified you deal purely. And with the crooked you make yourself seem tortuous. You have a humble people, but your eyes are on the haughty to bring them down. Now, I need to pause there. There's two things that really stick out to me here. One of them is in verse 27 when he says, with the crooked you make yourself seem torturous. For the non-believers, for those who are against Christ, they can't get it. And it seems torturous to them that this could be a loving God. But the second thing is this. Who in the world is David talking about? Do you guys catch that? I'm blameless, I'm pure. It's because of all of me keeping all of your statutes. I've never done anything wrong. Really? I mean, let's think about some of the R-rated sermons we've had to have here in the last little bit because of David. How can a guy who sleeps with his best friend's wife, has an adulterous affair with her, and then to cover it up has his best friend killed? How can he be righteous? Well, this is a bit of a conundrum, I think, that we're in here. And I think that we need to take a couple minutes to clarify it, because it just doesn't sit right, because we're justice people. And we also want honesty. And in today's world, there's this thing called unforgiveness. So if I were able to find something that you wrote on a tweet or an email 12 years ago, I get to define you by that today. So it's the cancel culture. If you said this way back when you were 12, therefore you can never be a good person and you're out, right? And that's one of the things we struggle with as Christians, because we want justice, but in reality we want mercy, and David wants the same thing. So here's one of the things that David did, is he admitted his guilt previous. And God forgave him. David still suffered all of the consequences of his sin. If you don't believe that, go back and reread some of this. The consequences are severe, and he's not exempt from them. Because he was in the Old Testament covenant with God, never in the covenant does it say that you must be perfect. It says, this is what you will do. I will be your God, and you will be my nation. You will be my children, and this is how we're going to interact together. And sin happens. But we like to call out the all-stars of sin, murder, and adultery. That's pretty big. But it's still forgivable. Amen? So in David's mind, David accepted his guilt. And he said it out loud. And it wrote it down. And then God removes sin as far as the east is from the west. That's the new covenant. This is a precursor to the new covenant. The new covenant was with Jesus Christ. And it's this simple act of worship called faith that makes us pure and righteous. David was a sinful man. We all are. Scripture tells us everybody's fallen, and it's very evident. We're all in need of redemption. But I know this is when my mom dies, she's going to go and stand before the Creator. Maybe she'll sit. I don't know how that works. This is my picture. And even though you can't say my mom wasn't perfect, I can. Right? But God himself is going to look at little Jean through the eyes of Jesus. He's going to put on Jesus' glasses, and he's going to see her as pure and justified and righteous. The same goes for David. It isn't about works. But when we, us, I, you, sincerely admit guilt, ask forgiveness, it's gone. And we are now righteous. Then all it requires is faith. That's it. The grace and mercy is abundantly poured on us at that point. So let's keep moving. In verse 29, he continues, "For you are my lamp, O Lord, and my God lightens my darkness. For by you I can run against a troop, and by my God I can leap over a wall. This God, his way is perfect. The word of the Lord proves true. He is a shield for all those who take refuge in him. For who is God but the Lord? And who is a rock except our God? This God is my strong refuge, and has made my way blameless. He made my feet like deer, and he set me secure on the heights. He trains my hand for war so that my arms can bend a bow of bronze. You have given me the shield of your salvation, and your gentleness made me great. You gave a wide place for my steps under me, and my feet did not slip. I pursued my enemies and destroyed them, and did not turn back until they were consumed. I consumed them. I thrust through them, so that they did not rise, and they fell under my feet. For you equipped me with strength for the battle. You made those who rise against me sink under me. You made my enemies turn their backs to me, those who hated me, and I destroyed them. They looked, but there was no one to save. They cried to the Lord, but he did not answer them. I beat them fine as dust of the earth. I crushed them and stamped them down like the mire of the streets. You delivered me from strife of my people. You kept me as head of the nations. People whom I had not known served me. Foreigners came cringing to me. As soon as they heard of me, they obeyed me. Foreigners lost heart and came trembling out of their fortresses. The Lord lives, and be blessed, be my rock. And exalted be my God, the rock of my salvation. The God who gave me vengeance and brought down people under me, who brought me out from my enemies. You exalted me above those who rose against me. You delivered me from men of violence. For this I will praise you, O Lord, among the nations, and sing praises to your name. Great salvation he brings to his king, and shows steadfast love to his anointed, to David and his offspring forever. Amen. This is a powerful ending. Now, David lived in a harsh world, in a harsh country, and there was an entire tribe and horde surrounding the nation of Israel that wanted to kill them. And they went to actual battle. And they had to fight, and they had to be brave, and they had to show up, and they had to plan, and they had to bleed, and some of them had to die. But God went before them. Do you see how many times David says you, referring to God with a big G? You, oh God, you gave me this power. You made me be able to run like a deer, to keep my path straight and narrow. Whenever I cried out to you, you answered. You showed me the way, and all I did was follow. But look what you did. David, in this little section, comes up with a phrase that is so powerful. And it deserves a lot of voice today in this world. And he says, this God. Why would he say that? This God. This is the one. All the others. Now, are there other gods? Yes. Who creates them? We do. What's the God? Well, there's a God of fear. There's a God of anger. There's a God of pride. There's a God of money, of comfort, of lifestyle. There's a God of political parties. There's a God of justice. And they're all false gods. This God, this is the one. He's pointing to all people and to all nations. Jesus, when he comes and we get to the new covenant with Christ, he says it's for all. All nations, everyone. It's not just for Israel. Now this message is for all. And what Christ is saying is this God is for this world. This God. I believe that. There are days where it feels like I just want to believe it. It's not quite there. We like to quantify sin as really big and unforgivable, but in this goofed up world that Christ created, none are unforgivable, including all of mine. This God, not the false gods that are so prevalent. We live in a world with so many gods right now. And those gods are doing one thing. They're creating chaos and fear, and that is all. It is from the pit of hell, and it is horrible, and it is ruining people. But this God, the God of mercy and justice and love, all David did was cry out and have faith. That's all he did. He cried out and he had faith. He cried out and he had faith. How much faith? I don't know. You take the most faithful person on the planet and stack all of their little faith marbles up as high as you want, and it won't reach. It's small. That's all that it requires. But it's faith in this God, this one, not the others. That will erase all fear. Jesus tells us that there's a time when he's going to come back and he's going to wipe every tear. Every tear comes from fear. The fear will be gone. Just like the people holding my mom's hand right now. Is that a powerful enough picture for you? It's what it is. Just like taking a pause and looking at a song rather than a story. Maybe it's time for us to take a pause as a congregation. But one, do you know how blessed we've been? How many churches are struggling to find out how to really reopen after COVID? God has blessed us so richly. I just shrug my shoulders and say, we are not worthy, but thank you. It's incredible. I've watched lives continue to change because of this God. But we pause for a minute, and maybe it's time to write the book. Maybe it's time to do a little exercise. What's your song? Yeah, don't tell me it's some weird country song that makes you want to dance a little. Well, those are cool, I guess, if you're weird. You know, is it a Bob Dylan song? Is it a, which it should be because he's an artist and you're not. But what if you took time and you wrote your song? See, that's the beauty of songs, is that the ones that I love, there's a lot of people that really love a lot of worship music, and I can't be in that crowd. I don't like most of it. And please hear this correctly. There's a lot of other songs that speak to me in worship, and the other songs are because they're pure from the heart. And they share pain and joy and loss and gain. And they're just articulated honestly. And they're all worship as they point to the Creator. So what if you were to write your own song? I don't write real well. Well, welcome to the Don't Write Real Well Club. There's apps for that. But what if you were to write this song? And you got real and said, this is who God is for me. And here's how powerful he is. It's incredible how powerful he is. And here's the times when I cried out to him. Here's the times where I had faith and I cried out and he responded in a powerful way, maybe one I never saw coming, but he responded. And the times that I was filled with fear and he showed up and put somebody else's hand in mine. What if we wrote that down? You wrote your song. So you don't even have to worry about the music. All we are is a lyricist. Some people can do music. That's cool. Bless you. But we can all write lyrics. And they don't even have to rhyme. Don't work that hard. Just write it down. And you take that and you fold it up. You keep it. Don't throw it away. Don't post it on Facebook. Do not be that dumb. Keep it. It's yours. It's your intimate relationship with Christ. It's intimacy. You put it in your underwear drawer where nobody else is going to look. In that day when your lack of faith and the world combines to slap you down and you're feeling the feels that you don't like, rather than going to addiction A, B, or C, you go to the drawer, you pull it out, you read it, and you remember. See, that, my friends, is worship. That's worship. So the band's going to come out. I'm going to ask if you'll just bow your head for a minute. I want you to think about how you might start your song. See, it doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be short. It doesn't have to be in poem form. It's your form. God knows you and he desires this communication. And we're going to write this down, not for future generations to be awed over, but for us to be awed once again about God, about Christ. So I struggled for the longest time with worship music. And I'm getting better. I have worship music in my playlist. I was very prideful and I couldn't stand worship music. And only because I was so filled with rage against my own self. I ended up in treatment, and while I'm in treatment, I got this counselor who turns out to be one of my life coaches, one of the people who's been the most important mentors I've ever had. And he said, hey, I'm going to do a church service here in treatment. And my first reason to sign up to go to that was because I get to spend an extra hour with my wife. But then this humble, simple man who sings about as well as I do taught the gospel in just a gentle, pure way that only he could do. And we close out this tiny group of people sitting in this cruddy little room on bad chairs, and he'd sing a song, and we had no music. And the lyrics are, I love you, Lord, and I lift my voice to worship you. It's so much better than, I forgot about you, Lord, and I'm lifting my voice against the injustices of the world, and I forgot you. What if you write the song starting with, I worship you, this God I worship? We're going to sing that song in a bit, but we're going to sing some other praise first. And we're going to end with this most simplistic, gorgeous worship song that I know. Someday, maybe I'll hear your worship song.